for Gisli Gunnar Johnson at this point, and that puts him to the head of the list, ahead of Gunnar Egilson on 740 and Einar Gunnlaugsson on 730 points after the 4 tests so far. So moving on to the next test, and Gunnar Egilson is the first to challenge on this one. And oh dear, it all goes a little bit wrong. He scores 200. The idea is to make it all the way to the top. Harald Peterson comes a little closer, but he goes a bit too far off to the right. And in fact, the judges said that he was outside the track, so he only scores 100 points. Disappointing score for Harald Pedersen. Off we go with Gisli Johnson, leader of the competition so far, and he also goes a bit too far off to one side, but makes it down without rolling over. 210 points. That's up to a total of 990. That's another run, another look at his run. Lucky not to roll it down the hill. And we move on to Einar Gunnlaugsson. He's got bigger tyres on this machine, the Dragon, hoping for a little bit of extra traction, but it doesn't quite work. All 4 wheels scrabbling for grip as the mighty V8 engine does its stuff. 200 points scored. Take another look at that one from the other angle. Almost vertical, that final part of the climb. But it just doesn't want to know. So in the end, he's forced to back off and let it head down the hill. So after the 5th course, Gisli Johnson still leading from Gunnar Egilson and Einar Gunnlaugsson, and it's all pretty close between them. Onto the speed track now. Remember, the speed track is scored according to who sets the fastest time. Normally, it's not too difficult to negotiate and complete, but you've got to do it in the fastest time possible. Gisli Johnson, not such a good time for him, so he doesn't score maximum on this one. Gunnar Egilson had the chance to take the win at this 2nd round, but in spite of his vehicle, which is known as Svali, which means cool in Icelandic, he wasn't fast enough either, and he scored 220 points. So it was left to Einar Gunnlaugsson to try and set the pace, but unfortunately a stopped engine didn't help his cause, and Harald Pedersen ended up upside down. So the final positions from the 2nd round here: Gisli Johnson scoring maximum and adding 20 points to his championship score already, with Gunnar Egilson 2nd and Einar Gunnlaugsson 3rd here at Egilsstadir. So in the championship standings, it means that Harald Pedersen leading from Gisli Johnson, and in fact tied on points, but Pedersen with the slight advantage on the tie-break, and the others following suit. On to the next competition now. The 3rd round of the competition. And starting off with track number 3, Einar Gunnlaugsson setting off. But he miscalculates a little bit. He goes too far off to the right. And that makes it even harder. So immediately he loses some points. He loses 40 points for reversing. And not very happy about that. Before he can really attack the next part of the hill. But overall, it's a bit of a disappointing run for Gunnlaugsson, and he only scores 80 points. Gisli Johnson. Now, all of the competitors normally walking the tracks before they set off, but even so, it's very easy to go a little bit off course. And then comes down and somehow manages to avoid rolling over, and that gets a round of applause from the crowd. Johnson scoring 200 points, so a much better effort than Gunnlaugsson. Order Sigurdsson, very careful over the first part, but perhaps not quite aggressive enough over the second part. Only scores 150 out of a possible 300. Sigurd Axelsson with his vehicle, Grace. Normally, these steep slopes are his speciality, but a bit too much power there. That saw the front end leaping away, and he scores just 80. Gunnar Egilson taking a slightly different route to the others, keeping it more to the left. Good up the first part. Oh, but it all goes wrong for him at the top. Rolls it over, and down she comes, and the bonnet goes flying. And well, let's take another look at that. Fairly dramatic tumble down the hill for Gunnar Egilson. But these machines are built to withstand that. You see his head snapping across, and of course all of the drivers are obliged to wear a head restraint, a neck collar, in fact, that they have to wear according to the rules, and that's to protect their neck in those sort of rollovers to avoid the whiplash. A vital part of the safety equipment. So here's Asgeir Jamel Allensen, and that's a good one from him. 210 points scored. One of the best we've seen. Ingimar Bjornsson next up, who's a beginner, but he's going pretty well in this, his first season, and he earns 140 points. Harald Peterson, the leader in the championship, lying in second place before this test, but this is a fantastic run from Pedersen, who scores 240 points and takes him back up into the lead. From on board as well. Just look how much of a pounding the driver gets, but what a great run it was for Harald Pedersen, taking the overall lead with that run. As for Thormar, the next one up. Or Trent to be the next one up. But he goes a bit off course, unfortunately, and even though he made it to the top, he only scored 90 points. So Pedersen leading after the 3 rounds in this particular competition, but only 10 points between him and the next one. So Einar Gunnlaugsson, the next one to challenge on the 4th test we are now. But that all went a bit wrong for him, only 60 points scored there, and you can see just basically lost momentum at the bottom of the hill, and it was not going to go any further after that. Gisli Johnson's the next one to have a go, and that's a much more impressive performance. He scores 200. Brings his total score up to 940 now. Border Sigurdsson. And that's an excellent run for him. 275, almost a maximum score. Sigurd Axelsson also another impressive one. 210 points out of 300 possible scored there. And Ragnar Skulesson with the Yellow Submarine, as this vehicle's known, scoring well. Allensen a bit off course towards the top, doesn't quite crest the rise. Harald Pedersen, the ice car, our leader, and another great run from him. 250 scored. This machine working superbly well. Another view from on board the machine. And the 24-year-old driving superbly in this competition. Vidar Sigthorsson next up. But after the 4th course, Harald Pedersen still with the lead over Gisli Johnson and Sigurd Axelsson, and opening up a little bit more of an advantage. Now to the last track in this competition. Up a bank and then a long way along to the left. We see Asgeir Allensen, the first one to have a go. He's got to then try and get it up over the final crest as well, but it doesn't quite work out. He scores 150 points. Harald Pedersen, the 1995 champion, the leader of the competition, disappears from view for a moment. Now he has to traverse that ledge across the top. Oh, but he just can't get it to go up, and it comes back down in dramatic style once again. Pedersen rolls it down the hill, scores 150 points. Let's take another look at that. You see he blasted it across, but then just no way it was going to carry on like that. Einar Gunnlaugsson, the 1994 Icelandic off-road champion. But, oh dear, same for him. He rolls it fairly gently. And he's not happy about that. Felt he could have done better. Take another look at it. Just, again, lost the momentum. And down it went. Down went the dragon. So, Gisli Johnson next up. He's got a chance of taking the lead of the competition here if he can get a good run in. Usually pretty good on these sort of lateral slopes. Now, can he get up over the final part? Well, it's a tricky one. No, he can't. And over she goes. So, the rest of the front runners ending up on their roofs. 190 points scored by Johnson. Let's just take another look at that one again. As Gisli Johnson loses the chance of taking over the lead of the competition. And down she goes. So, next up, Horde Sigurdsson. Only competed on a few occasions. Sigurdsson not as experienced. But he's putting in a good effort. Still not quite enough to get over that final part. 120 points scored, 895 his total. So Sigurður Axelsson, what can he do? This shorter wheelbase machine sometimes gives him a bit of an advantage. Looks as though he's got a good cross here. Oh, but he can't quite make it up over that final part. Or can he? Oh, yes, he does. Over the top. And indeed, he only scored 10 points less than the maximum there. 290. So that's he shoots up into second place thanks to that run. Superb performance by Sigurður Axelsson, who puts himself into the running for the championship. And there with his little cousin, Frida Grace, after whom his car is named indeed. So the final result of this round of the competition, Haraldur Pedersen, the winner, from Sigurður Axelsson there, the man in the red car who snatched second place in the final stages of the competition. And in the overall championship, it means that Haraldur Pedersen has a 5-point lead over Gisli Johnson, and Sigurður Axelsson moving his way up as well.
Is nothing without control. Pirelli P6000.
Starting causes more engine damage than normal running. Esso Ultron motor oil flows fast to protect your engine, cleaning as it flows for longer engine life. Fast, clean protection right from the start.
Welcome back to Icelandic four-wheel drive, looking back over the past year's competition, and we're moving on now to round 4 from Akraborg. Well, the model machines of the youngsters matching up to the real machines that have now got to take on the next few courses here at Akraborg, and the championship continues. And we're starting our look on the 4th test with Asger Jamil Allanson and his car, the Dame. Now this track 4 is a fairly famous one in Icelandic four-wheel drive circles, and and it's caused many a problem in the past. It's very short, it's a blast up a very short but very steep slope, and the idea to make it over the top. And this time, competitors getting on with it fairly well. In the past, it's seen only a few competitors make it right to the top, but perhaps as a result of the constant development, constant hard work by the drivers of these machines, and a result of the conditions and the state of the terrain, everybody managing to make it pretty much to the top. Another maximum score of 300. Remember, these machines, very specifically built to a set of regulations defining many parts of the machinery. They have to use particular tyres. They're allowed studded on special tyres, but they're not allowed snow chains or belts or any other sort of additional metal fixings onto the tyres to help them in their attempts to climb these ridiculous slopes. And all sorts of particular regulations that are very much unique to this type of competition. Sigurd Axelsson getting into trouble with his short wheelbase machine. That really flicked up in the air, and one of the few, in fact, not to make it all the way to the top safely. Massively strong machines, of course, built to withstand the sort of terrain and the sort of accidents that they suffer. And a lot built in to make sure that nothing can go wrong. They're allowed to have a rear view mirror, for example, although quite why they need it, I don't know. But the rear view mirror has to be made of polished steel. No glass allowed anywhere in that cockpit. And that's for fairly obvious reasons once they start coming down those hills upside down. So after that particular section of this competition, Einar Gunnlaugsson with the Dragon tying with Gisli Johnson, and Gunnar Egilson not far away either, so it's all pretty close at the top. So on to the final part of this competition, the time test, and as ever the time recorded matching up to the points scored. The fastest time getting the 300 points, and Gisli Johnson very rapid indeed on the timed section. Scoring 240 points on this occasion though. Not quite the fastest of all. Einar Gunnlaugsson involved in the battle in the championship with Gisli Johnson. And an all-important charge along this final section. 270 points scored by Gunnlaugsson, but the fastest time would go to Asgeir Jamal Allanson, driving the Dart. And his time would prove to be a second faster than Gisli Gunnar Johnson. So at the end of this fourth round of the competition, and the top three, Einar Gunnlaugsson, Gisli Gunnar Johnson and Gunnar Egilson, all pretty close. And in the championship, it means that it's all closed up at the top, with Johnson, Pedersen and Gunnlaugsson separated by just 4 points. These three have wrapped up all three Icelandic championships in the last few years, and there's a battle still to go on. Well, that battle was to come a little bit later in the year, and later on in the programme we will return to the final round of the Icelandic four-wheel drive championship. But in the meantime, another championship was run during the summer months, the World Cup. The first time the competition has been held And we're taking a look now at the first round of the World Cup. And Gisli Johnson, one of those front runners in the Icelandic series, again, one of the fancied runners in the World Cup series. Not much luck here for Johnson, though, on this next section. Failing to get over that final rise. 200 points scored. Another look at the point where it just became a little too much for the Power Mac to make it up that final part. In fact, Johnson realized that his nitro equipment wasn't working properly. A stone had hit one of his fuel pumps, broken a wire, and he wasn't getting the sort of power that he should have been from his machine. This is Asger Daniel Allensen, doing well up the first part, but then getting it all a little bit out of control. But determined not to give up. And a good effort from Allensen, scoring 170 points. And a big round of applause from the spectators for his determination. Pedersen hitting a couple of tyres on his way across. That's cost him some points. And indeed, the judges reckoning that he went off course and meant that he only scored 80 points as opposed to the 250 he should have earned for making it all the way over the top. So that's bad luck for Pedersen. The judges' decision, though, final. And there's not a lot that he can do about it. Ragnar Skulason next up with the Yellow Submarine. And scoring 200 on that run. Saying Ludvig Stottir next up, the lady competitor. She goes off track as well. She goes right off, so only 110 scored by her. Judges at each of the tests to check who's going off course or not. 4 judges. Two of them to judge the driving through the course, and the other two to make sure they give the right penalties for hitting the markers on the way up the hill. Einar Gunnlaugsson here. Good run from him. 290 scored. He was in 5th place. And that's moved him up in the points. Back up into the battle for the lead. Look at this once again as Gunnlaugsson charged his way up the final part. Vidar Sigthorsson driving the Frisky. He's had an engine on loan throughout the summer months. But doesn't go quite as according to plan here. Scores 180 points. Total up to 730 now. Sigurður Axelsson up with the leaders in the championship, remember. He was trailing Gisli Johnson by 60 points coming into this test. Johnson didn't have such a good run. If you remember, this is a good run from Axelsson. And he closes to within 30 points of the leader of the competition now. So great performance from Axelsson, and that puts him right up there now. Gisli Johnson in 2nd place, Einar Gunnlaugsson with the Dragon in 3rd place. And in fact, that was basically how it finished up at that competition, the first round of the World Cup, with Axelsson winning it from Johnson. And the points accordingly from the first round of the World Cup. But we'll be back after the break with the second and final round of the World Cup to see who managed to take the championship.
Die beiden haben eine neue Bank, die ihnen viel Zeit und mehr Service schenkt. Per Telefon. Stellen Sie sich vor, Sie haben ein Konto für alles. Das neue Cash-Management-Konto.
Welcome back to Icelandic Off-Road, and we're on to the second round now of the World Cup competition. And Gisli Johnson, one of the top guys, as we've already seen in the competition, with the others all battling for maximum points on their way. Ingimar Bjornsson, first up this next test with the ants, but it all goes sadly wrong for him. Oh, and he's not very happy about it. 60 points scored only by Ingimar Bjornsson. Next is Asger Jamel Allensen. And it's all a question of trying to get enough momentum up before the first bank. Those who don't manage it only score low points, like Allensen there only getting 80, and only 60 points for Raffen Haddison. Now here's Gisli Johnson, gathering a bit of speed to try and get over the ridge, but it's too much and over it goes. Keeps his foot down a bit too long, and he scores 90 points there. Take another look at it. Just a bit carried away, perhaps. And on board with him. See what happens. See how he's trying to get a gear as he goes down over backwards and kicks up the dust. Halvor Pedersen with the ice car. Not quite enough speed for him. 80 points scored. So after that third course, Ingimar Bjornsson leading from Gisli Johnson. Halvor Pedersen is down in fourth place, and Gunnlaugsson doesn't even feature in the top 6 yet. So Allensen next up on the following competition. Track 4, very, very steep. 220 points scored by Allensen. Sigthorsson, good one for him. Making it all the way to the top over the final gate, and a maximum score of 300. Lady driver Seun Ludvigsdottir next up. It's all getting a little bit out of hand at the bottom part of the hill, and now she's lost the upwards momentum, but still scores 200. Gisli Johnson's got to make up for that disappointment of rolling down the hill on the last test. And he keeps it more under control this time. Just gets a little flick at the final part, but loses only 10 marks. And that's put him back in the hunt for the win here. Halvor Pedersen with the ice car. Good, steady run up the first part. And he scores 300 as well. So after the 4 tracks, it's a tie for the lead between Gisli Johnson and Sigthorsson. Pedersen closer now in third, and the others filling out the top 6. Raffen Haddison slipping down the visor at the last moment, but failing to make it up to the top. 220 scored. And Peter Pedersen driving the fly on the 5th course. Pretty good, 240 scored by him. Now let's see what Gisli Johnson does. Battling for the lead in the competition, remember. Fast and furious, but not quite there. 230 points out of 300. Now Pedersen, he's closing up on Johnson, remember, in the competition, and that's a fine effort. 275 points scored. Just touched the tyres on the end gate, which cost him some points. Allensen next up, 290, and another great run. But Pedersen did enough there to move into the lead ahead of Gisli Johnson, with Asger Jamel Allensen up to 3rd position now. Now for the penultimate part of this competition, and Seun takes a tumble. She scores 210, but it's a very dramatic fall down the hill. Gisli Johnson attacking, 250 points scored. It's going to be very close though between him and Pedersen. Pedersen, the new leader, remember, he scores more again, so he opens up that lead a little further. Asger Jamel Allensen in 3rd place before this test. Can he hold on to that or improve? Well, it's not so good, and it flicks over in the final part of the test and bounces its way down, so he only scores 230 this time. Have another look at that one. Just seemed to hook, and then no way he could do anything about it. Over she went, back down the hill. The massive roll cage standing up to it well though. Peter S. Pedersen. Doing a superb job. Only having rear-wheel drive. His front-wheel drive wasn't working properly. 210 points scored nonetheless. And, well, let's have another look at that. You can see the front wheels aren't scrabbling for grip as they should be. And as he went back down the hill, the rear drive shaft pulled out and he lost his rear wheel. So Harold Pedersen taking the lead and indeed winning the competition outright. Harold Pedersen on 1410 and did a great run in the final test of the day as well, the speed test. And Pedersen able to take the overall win in the competition and the overall win in the first ever World Cup. Pedersen the winner then. Confirmation of that from Gisli Johnson and Asgil Jamal Allenson. And Harold Pedersen, the World Cup winner by just the 1 point from Gisli Johnson. And we'll be back with the final round of the Icelandic Championship to find out what happened there after the break.
Ask anyone to draw a star. Most of the time you'll see this. Perceptions can be misleading. It's time to take a good look at the new Hyundai, where reality exceeds expectations. Hyundai.
Time Life Music präsentiert Ihnen den Sound der 70er. Die größte und fetzigste Sammlung von 70er-Hits, die es gibt. Holen Sie sich 24 Top-Hits von 1979. Diese heiße Sammlung gibt's nur bei Time Life. Fordern Sie Ihre 70s Collection an. 2 CDs, 10 Tage zum Probehören. 0180 532 3232. Genießen Sie die besten, die heißesten Hits von 1979. Jetzt zum super Kennenlernpreis von nur 19,80 Mark für 2 CDs. Get the 70s. 0180 532 3232.
To four-wheel drive from Iceland, and we're now going to be taking a look at the final round of the Icelandic Championship, which we left earlier in the programme. Very, very finely balanced indeed between the front runners, and this is one of them, Gisli Johnson, and we're into the final round on board as well. On his helmet, quick look around, get it all in gear, check the dials, and then set off on this second competition. We're here at Hella for the final round, a huge crowd gathered to see who will be the champion, and away goes Gunnar Johnson. And this indeed is a time track, so the nitro burning hard. 240 points scored by Johnson. Not quite the fastest on this opening track. Peter S. Pedersen didn't do very well on the first test. Perhaps trying a little bit too fast. And now trying this second test, attacking quite hard again. Trying to keep the speed up against the clock, this one, remember. Oh, and over it goes, and it's a hefty old rollover. Scores 280, but you could see that rollover cage took a hefty pounding this time. Look at that. Straight over, bang, onto the roll cage. And in fact, because the roll cage was damaged, he wasn't allowed to continue the competition. The scrutineer said, nope, that's it, can't do any more. And that put him out. So even though he scored 280 points there, poor chap wasn't able to run in the rest of the day. Raffen Hardison next up with the Pussycat. And scoring 180 points. And Horder Sigurdsson, not one of the most experienced competitors. But he also had problems. And in fact, the car packed up. And he wasn't able to score very well, only 24 points indeed. Pedersen, one of our top competitors. A good time for him, scored in 250 points. Well, Einar Gunnlaugsson was a little slower, only scored 210 points. So after that second test, it was Pedersen leading ahead of Gunnlaugsson and Johnson. Those three, remember, are the three battling for the championship, so it's absolutely vital to try and stay ahead. On to the next test, and Raffen Hardison next up. Track number 3. They have to climb a bank, then down it again, then across. Quite a steep lateral slope. It's a long test, this one. They go over the rise here, and then across this steep slope. They're supposed to keep the white tyres on their right-hand side, and they're penalised for knocking them over. So various points going for Burton here. And then up the final part of the bank. But he picks up 190 penalty points, so scores 110, brings his total up to 400. Vidar Sigthorsson. Try and keep the momentum up, the first part. And then bring it round and across this second part. Takes the tyre out there, there's 20 penalty points. But it's a good run, 260 points scored. Ingemar Bjornsson. He started his experience of this type of competition at this very event at Helle in 1995. So this is the end now of his first full season of competition. Oh, and it gets a bit out of shape. Lacks experience compared with some of the others. And only scores 90 points on this one. Pal Thormar next up, the old man of competition, 58 years old. But he's borrowed this car from his son. It's his first competition, in fact. Normally his son drives this machine. But his son at this time is too busy fishing to be able to compete in this one. Sea fishing, his trade, and his father's taken it over, but picking up a few penalty points. Not a bad effort though, and makes 210 points. Gunnar Eggleston now with Svali. A little bit inconsistent over the course of the championship. Sometimes working well, other times not so well. Let's see what he can do with this Traverse. A hugely powerful machine, this one of the most powerful on the trail. Now, drops quite low there. It's lost him some points. Now he's got it a bit out of shape. Oh, and I don't think he's going to be able to... Oh, can he prevent it going over? Yes, he does. By giving it a little blast on the accelerator, he actually managed to avoid rolling it. Fantastic stuff. Watch it, it was about to go over, and he accelerated and that was enough to bring it back onto its tyres again. Great achievement there. Another quick look. Watch the wheels spinning. They stop spinning for a moment. It starts to roll, then they spin again as he accelerates. And he saves it. Sigurdur Axelsson next up. He's put in some fine performances. This car a little bit prone to jumping from the front though. He seems to have a problem with the front flicking high into the air when it hits the ruts and jumps. And he's going a bit too far down. He only scores 180 points in the end. And a bit of a disappointment for him. Allenson now in his second year of off-road competitions. But he's put in some great performances this year. Now he's got to get across this hillside. That's 20 points straight away. Now he's got to make it up the final steep incline. And he does so. 250 points out of a possible 300. Not bad at all. Now then, here's one of the top men. Going for the championship, remember. Harald Pedersen. Leading, going into this test with 525 points. Gunnlaugsson was on 500. And watch him across the lateral slope. Good. Clean run across there. Up the final part, it's a good run. 255 points scored. And that's a good effort, just collecting the tyre at the end there. Let's see what it was like from on board on one of this longest tests. Notice how he can turn the steering quite easily. All the vehicles have a hydraulic steering system. In fact, this steering system uses a hydraulic jack taken from a heavy-duty earth-moving machine. And that helps avoid the violent kickback and heavy steering effort that you might expect to see. Now, Einar Gunnlaugsson. He's battling for the championship as well, remember. Second place coming into this test. He was 25 points behind the man we just saw. Drops a little lower down on the traverse, takes out two tyres. But can he make it up over the final part? He's lost 40 penalties at least. But the final part, in fact, he loses more than that. Because he got too far down. If you have a look here, he dropped too far down and he was officially classified as off course there. And that's what meant the extra 100 penalty points. So it was a bit of a disastrous run for Gunnlaugsson there. Gisli Johnson next of the front runners. He's got a chance of catching up to Gunnlaugsson at least and close into Harald Pedersen as well. Try and make as clean a run as possible. Gently does it on the descent and at the cross now. Keeps it well on the course. It's a good one. Just clips the tyre. And then up the final section. Oh, he doesn't quite crest the rise. But he still scores 220 points. So he's closed the gap on Gunnlaugsson. But all that has meant that Harald Pedersen has managed to open up his advantage up front. Just wasn't quite enough momentum there for Johnson. So he ended up losing out in the battle. And you could see he was not happy about that. That was a very important test. So it means that Pedersen's opened up a bit of an advantage up front. Johnson in second, only 30 points ahead of Gunnlaugsson in third. The battle continues between the three. Well, a massive number of spectators watching this final round of the competition. And this one at Hella has been held for some 26 years in some form of off-roading here. John Adelson Gedson into the river, but didn't get any further. And this gives us a chance to see just how deep the water was on this section. Pal Torma sails across the river. That's when aquaplaning comes into its own, when you can just walk on water, and just look what a superb achievement from Pal Torma. That's the way to get across these lakes and rivers. Sigthorsson tries the same, but he loses out, and look how deep it is once you lose out. And the engine also not running very cleanly. Allinson's next up, blasting it, trying to keep the speed up, trying to make it aquaplane. Look at it, when it goes right, it's great, but just losing the aquaplane a bit towards the end. The main thing is not to let the engine stall. If you get water into the air filter, then of course the engine will not run very cleanly. Einar Gunnlaugsson, this is an important run for him. And Gunnlaugsson gets through fairly cleanly. Let's take another look. Now he kept it sailing across the water. .230 points scored. Good run that for Gunnlaugsson. But what about Gisli Johnson? Into the first puddle. And he's going the wrong way. Where are you going? Not supposed to go that way. He realizes, does a quick turn, sets off again. Having lost the advantage of the aquaplaning, Gisli Johnson in big trouble, and Haraldur Pedersen's looking safe at the top end of the table. Gisli Johnson attacks the second lake with a bit more gusto and keeps it going in the right direction. Now what can he do to the rest of the course? Well, that's more like it. Just look at the way it floats across the surface of the water. Fantastic stuff. And 250 points scored by Gisli Johnson. Now, Haraldur Pedersen stopped in this section last year, but he gets through cleanly through the first part. No doubt a bit nervous after the troubles he had here last year. Just look at that. The car seems absolutely perfect for these aquaplaning drives. Sails across the next one. Oh, it's getting a bit out of shape, but he keeps it going, keeps it going. Dying a little bit towards the last part. He needs to keep it going, and he scores the maximum, 300 points for Haraldur Pedersen. Fantastic. He recalls the best time, no penalties at all for him, and some magnificent driving for Haraldur Pedersen. And that's just about wrapped up this competition for the 1995 champion. Haraldur Pedersen, after the fifth course, leading Gisli Johnson and Einar Gunnlaugsson, and it would stay that way right to the end of the competition. And Haraldur Pedersen wrapped up the 1996 Icelandic off-road class with a 4-point advantage in the end over Gisli Johnson. So Haraldur Pedersen, the 1995 champion, has become the 1996 champion as well. The man to beat in Iceland.
Sports Center is brought to you on Eurosport by Samsung.